Welcome back to another episode of the Budget Built Miata presented by Nankang Motorsport and Racepack. After our disappointment at the racetrack, we've gone through your comments, and today we're going to address all of those shortcomings that we exposed on the racetrack. So after scratching our heads a little bit after that track test and reading through all of your comments and even chatting with some of you via Facebook or email or the places you message us, we came to the conclusion that there's a few problems with the car and the way it was handling. It was understeering, and no matter what I did as far as shock settings and tire pressures go, I just couldn't get the car to loosen up. So at the time, I think we both agreed that there was something not right with the setup, and having thought about it more and talked with you guys, we've decided it needs more front camber, and we're also going to put some rake in it. But we also felt like there was a lot of slop in the front end, there was slop in the shifter, there was just slop everywhere. So we're going to address all of that today, starting with bushings from SuperPro. So we ordered up their alignment and enhancement kit, which is going to replace all of the bushings pretty much in the car. And they do come with the benefit of having some caster and camber adjustability via these offset center cores to the bushings. After our experience with rust and sheared bolts and stuff too, Pete went ahead and ordered up some new OEM bolts in case we break some of those. And we ordered new control arms for the whole front of the car because those ones are also rusty and we're afraid they're going to be seized up. These are pretty affordable to order. And we even have offset lower ball joints. This is one of the recommendations that you guys had for a cheap and easy way to add front camber to this car. We got these from 5X Racing, by the way, and we should mention they were great. We asked them as politely as we could to ship these out ASAP because we want to get this car back to the track. They shipped them out super quick, so thank you very much, 5X Racing. So I guess it's time to get to work on the front suspension here, Pete, and just see how much of a fight these bolts and bushings are really going to be.
It's a bit of a rust bomb up here, and I know for a fact Nam has loosened these inner control arm bolts because he had to do an alignment, so thankfully I think these guys are going to come out. However, the struggle is going to be with the nut on the ball joint here, the upper one here, because that's never been off, and the big question is whether there's a long bolt that runs through this entire upper control arm and whether that comes out. So cross your fingers, here we go. Well, once again, the Miata was a fighter, and we struggled with rust and those cotter pins, DP.
Pure evil.
I think we spent more time trying to pull the cotter pins out of these damn things than actually taking the rest of it apart. The good news is the long bolt that I was worried about being seized actually came out, cleaned it up a bit, and I have pressed in all of our bushings, as you can see here and here. As Dave mentioned, the SuperPro ones, they're gonna give us a little bit more caster and camber adjustment on both sides, so that's a good thing. I've got our lower extended ball joint bolted in place. So now it is time to put this all back together. And just like that, we've got our front end complete. So that means it is time to move on to the rear. Everything I've read online is pointing towards this one bolt being our biggest hurdle. It rusts in the bushings. So I think I'm gonna heat the heck out of it and we're gonna see if this comes out. These bolts back here, the camber ones have been loosened by Nam, so we should be good to go there. And the rest of this stuff should be okay. So I think what I'm gonna start off with here is the old bolt buster. And we're gonna heat this nut up till it's glowing red and pray to the rust gods that it comes off. Oh man, the Bolt Buster is such an amazing tool. Like, look at this thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's piping red hot. Let's see if it comes off now.
Oh!
Yes, success. Now let's see if this will actually move, because if we have movement, then that means we're good to go. See, it's so seized.
Wow.
I'm gonna
Heat it up.
You know what? I tried heating it up on the other side, and it wouldn't go. So I think I'm just gonna reef on this as hard as I can, and it either snaps the head off or it rotates. So we're gonna see. Oh, something's happening. Ah.
Wow. You need a bigger leverage tool, buddy.
Okay, let me go get that.
And here it comes.
Moose, get in there.
Put some mass on behind this, Moose.
See if you either break it. Oh yeah.
It's gonna knock me out if that breaks.
I can see it's not rotating on this side,
Oh,
so.
it's just gonna shear the head off of
Yeah.
it.
All right, hold on, Moose. Just leave it. Okay, well, that means it is time for Plan B here. This is quickly becoming my favorite tool on the Miata, the Milwaukee Sawzall. And the secret weapon is this torch blade. Look at, we are still on the original one, and it makes easy work of cutting through the bolt here in between the control arm and the hub. So what I'm gonna do is slide it right in here and then just go send on it until we cut through this, because this is, I think, the only other option we have here. Oh, there we go. Man, as I said, this is an amazing tool. I feel like I've just been rained on with metal flakes here. Nasty, DP. Okay, so we are through one side. I may want to cut the other side, but first, what I'm gonna do is bust out our breaker bar here and see if I can rotate this, because if I can, that'll save me having to cut this other side. But
Wow.
see, it's, there we go. That's the sound. There it goes.
Working on the Miata is fun, everybody.
Woo-wee. Who wants to go to the gym when you've got a rusty Miata, right?
Yeah.
There it is. And that, good friends, is how you extract a very, very rusty bolt.
Look at that thing. She nasty.
So the thing is, because we're replacing the bushings, it's okay. We're just gonna press the other side out, which I'll show you in a second. So now what I'm gonna do is loosen all these other guys, which should be smooth sailing. We can pull all this out and then we can swap the bushings in. Unlike most cars that have a metal sleeve on the outside of the bushing, the Miata ones have a rubber one. So that means they're pretty easy to push out, because if this was metal to metal, it would be rusted in there pretty solid. So thankfully, they came out pretty easy, and the Super Pro ones went in fairly easy as well. As you saw, I had a little bit of a struggle there. It's kind of a two-man job if you want to do it quickly. And I should mention, these Super Pro bushings have a lifetime warranty. So if they ovalize, if they start feeling a little worn, you can replace them free of charge.
Now that Pete's done installing these rear lower control arms, it is time to move on to some frame rail braces. These are from our Theory Motorsports, a local, our buddy Rajan, whose Miata we actually tested out in a video, in that turbo versus supercharged Miata video. His was the turbo car. And these are really nicely built. They're made of 304 stainless. They're laser cut and then bent to shape. And as you can see, it's just a matter of drilling a whole bunch of holes in the floor and bolting these in. And obviously the advantage to these is, well, there's multiple advantages, but one is just stiffening up this old wet noodle of a chassis. A lot of you guys in the comments section were saying, you know, you really need to install these kinds of braces because it'll stiffen the chassis up a lot.
And get rid of that shake.
Maybe get rid of the shake. And it also gives you a jacking point where, you know, you wouldn't typically want to jack the car up off the frame rails on an older car like this because they're so soft. People compare them to like a mushy potato. Ours don't feel mushy, but this is so much stronger. We could safely jack up off of the frame rails now if we wanted to. And just like that, our Theory frame rail braces are in, and it wasn't too bad a job really. Just have to peel the carpet back and put these in place. They kind of fall in place naturally based on the contour that's been cut out in the front corner here. Drill your holes, put the supplied hardware through the holes, fasten it all up. The one issue we did have was that our frame rail on this side, someone had jacked up on it and it had sort of flattened out, so it was wider than the brace. So Pete just took a C-clamp and like squeezed it back into the right dimensions. This hammered in place and we were off to the races. And on this side, I don't think we had to do any tuning, did we, Pete?
Nah, it was good to
This
go.
one was just kind of like a press fit. We hammered it on there. So pretty simple job. And I mean, you can see how this is going to add a lot of stiffness to the chassis and let people jack up on this without turning your frame rails into smushy potatoes.
On the theme of adding chassis stiffness, we are going to replace our rubber door bushings with these plastic ones from 5X Racing. Some of you commented that this is actually a great mod to stiffen the chassis up, and that's because these are rubbers, so they have a lot of flex. They don't actually provide you with any type of support. The 5X Racing ones are actually a little bit different than most on the market. They're not Delrin, they're not 3D printed. They use like a slippery plastic, so when you install this, you can actually, when you close your door, it doesn't kind of bind up when you open it, which is why I went with these. So we're gonna bolt these in place and see if I can feel the difference. All right, here we go. Well, the door closes nicely, and man, it does not have any real play, so I suppose that's a success. Let's put the rubber one back in because I didn't actually test this, and we'll see if we have more play in the door or not. And there's our OEM rubber bushing, and look at that. You can see, like, check out already, there's just so much more movement. So we're gonna chalk that one up to being a very worthwhile mod. One of the things we complained about on our track day was the shifter, how vague it felt. And truth be told, I don't know, DP. It doesn't feel like it's got a lot of slop in it, but a lot of you mentioned we need to replace our bushing, and of course I picked that up from 5X Racing as well, along with their whole shifter rebuild kit. So I'm gonna tear this apart. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna check their site for some directions, and then we can see what the condition of our actual bushing is. Here is our shifter, and it doesn't look like our little bushing is destroyed, but I can feel there's a little bit of play in it, so it's a good thing. I think we're gonna be replacing that. Where I see we do have a problem is this piece right here. It holds down the shifter ball in place, so you kind of have no play, and with this being broken, that means our shifter had a little bit of play in that sense. So I thankfully ordered with the rebuild kit from 5X Racing, you do get this. So we're gonna take this all apart and replace it. There's also a couple of things, plastic pieces that you can replace inside the turret, but I did check those out and we're good to go. So all we're gonna do is just replace this and put the bushing on, and we'll see how it feels. All right, I'm gonna take back everything I said about the previous iteration of this being in good shape, because it wasn't. Man, the difference is night and day. It has almost more effort, which is great, and it's so much more precise. You'll have to try this out, DP, but I think that is a huge win for us. So even though Dave and I weren't rubbing our legs on the Momo steering wheel, this is a 350 millimeter wheel, we thought, you know what, we want something a little bit smaller for the guys that are taller and may have issues with heel-toe action. So once again, I turned to my friends at redline360.com, and within a day they had shipped me this Sparco steering wheel, and this is a 330 mil, and it's got a deeper dish too, so it's actually going to help in both ways, where now there's going to be a ton of legroom. I can see, even for somebody that was pretty tall, see that there's going to be a lot of room there. So and I do kind of like the seating position a little bit better right now, because the wheel's a little bit closer. It feels more like a race car, so I think this is a win-win in that situation.
Well, she's back on the ground, and our alignment settings are completely out of spec now because of all the changes that we've just made with the bushings and the extended lower ball joints and all that good stuff. So she needs to go back to NV Auto for another alignment. Sorry, Nam, we'll have to pimp your BRZ again for you, I guess. And one last thing we do need to do though is to add a bit of rake to the car. So I just took some measurements, and we're still at 0 rake. And from what all the spec Miata guys were telling me, these cars really like about a 1/4 inch of forward rake, so the rear end a 1/4 inch higher than the front. That'll really help loosen the car up and get it to oversteer a little bit, get some of that Miata-ness back in this Miata. Look at that, everyone. We are exactly a 1/4 inch higher in the rear than in the front, which is what we want for rake. So I'm gonna call that a win, and we're gonna call this episode a wrap. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Really appreciate the support, and if you wanna support us a little more, by all means, go and check us out on Patreon, where you can throw us a couple of bucks to help us continue building silly cars like this one. And in the next episode, you will see us back at the racetrack to see if we finally got this car rotating and driving like a Miata should.